Whoa. Look at those shades. Okay, let's see. Eric, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You can hear me. All right, good. Awesome. All right, give me 1 second. I just want to share this. What's going on today? Anything good with anybody?
Working.
Working? Well, that's good. Better than not working.
Yeah, for sure.
We lost Eric.
Hello.
Is Eric taking this call from the bottom of his car?
Yeah. I'm having breakfast too, so I didn't know if you guys wanted to watch me eat.
Well, I think we'll pass on that, but
All right.
No, I think I'd rather watch the inside of your glove box.
No.
all right, guys, we're ready to go. We've got a very, very special guest at the bottom of the screen. We've got Corey Melkonian. Corey, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just another day.
Yeah, just another day. Another day, another deal closed, right?
That's it.
So, first of all, I want to thank you for jumping on. I know that you're busy, and for whatever reason, even though you have no problem walking around talking to people, you were a little bit camera shy.
Yeah, I'm a shy guy.
Yeah. So I want to just go really quickly and just talk about at least that Framingham deal, and then you got another couple of listings as well. But why don't we start with the Framingham one? Actually, before I even talk about that, let's back this up for a second. What number investment deal do you think this is with us, including the ones that we've bought and the ones that you've either founding investor for or you've bought yourself? What would you guess?
I've been here for about 2 years. I would say it could be, I mean, a few of them fell through too. I'd say maybe 10.
That's what I was thinking too. 10 to 12, somewhere in that range. There were a couple that we put under contract and then we didn't end up moving forward with. And I think there was one, maybe a seller disappeared on us or it went to foreclosure, something like that.
Yeah, that was the first one. That's right. It went to foreclosure.
Yeah, right. We put it under contract. Did it go to foreclosure or that one was already foreclosed on when we signed the contract, right?
It was in the process. So I went there and it was my first appointment. So I'm thinking, I'm talking to them. I'm presenting our offer and everything. I'm thinking, wow, this is easy.
Yep.
And now I realize why. So they were foreclosed on. I gave them a deposit for $100 to sign the PNS. And I told them, hey, don't run off to Mexico with that $100. I haven't got reimbursed yet. This is this is a check from my own personal check.
Yeah. So that one didn't work out, but you got the one in Framingham. So
yeah.
Recently, what was that? Maybe a month ago that it was closed, or 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was supposed to be October 18th, and I got postponed to the 24th. What happened was when I initially went to the appointment, they were asking for $275,000, and the OCD offer was $250. Mm-hmm. So we weren't that far off. The place was in pretty good shape. I figured it just needed a light paint job. The appliances were updated. So I said to them, what's going on? If I can get you, $1 million within 30 days, are you guys willing to move? Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, you can give me $1 million, I can move tomorrow. I said, okay. Do you have a place to go? So they already had a place to go. So I knew the timeline. So I knew that, they had the buy-in and they wanted to do it.
Well, so where were they going and what was the time frame roughly?
They were going to their in-laws' place. Their in-laws was buying something. So it's the same town, and their timeline was about 45 days, 45 to 60 days. It wasn't that long. And the
why did they need to move in 40? Did they need to move in 45 or 60 days, or did they just want to move in 45 to 60 days?
They wanted to move because they were they needed money. They needed cash. They wanted to buy cars. They wanted to start a family.
Okay.
So what I ended up saying was, I was thinking, okay, our offer was maxed at 250. So I said, well, I do have an investor offer, but if you can wait a little bit longer, maybe 60 to 90 days, you might be able to get a little bit more money. So they said, no, we just want to cash out. We have I think they had about 20 or 30,000 in equity. So I started off at about 240. I said, well, the investor offer is going to be somewhere in the 235 to like 240, even 245. So then afterwards, he said, well, let me talk to my wife too. I couldn't seal the deal right then and there. So I did a second appointment. In the meantime, I was talking to you to see if you can go up to 255 or even 260. And you said no. So I knew that the bottom line was 250. So I went back the next day. I want to make sure that him and his wife were there. So I said, okay, the max offer that they can come, because they have to do work. They factor in the carrying costs, and it's all about the numbers. Just like you have choices who to sell it to, they have choices. Ocean State Development has choices who to buy it from, whether they buy your house, my house, or the house next door. As long as the numbers make sense, they'll do it and they'll close whenever you want. So then they agreed on the 250. I made sure everyone signed, and that was it. Basically, it wasn't that difficult.
Okay, so a couple of things. What was the condition of the property on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd say the property was about a 7, 7.5 to even close to an 8, because you really didn't have to do anything. Maybe just paint and replace the appliances if it needed. But it was black appliances. There wasn't like really scratches on it or anything like that. So you could actually just put it on the market now.
Really important point there, because again, common misconception is that, the only type of people that will sell to investors are people that need a lot of work. And while that is more common, we do get these, and this is going to be, when my partner Scott went out there, he said, man, this is going to be like a 2-week renovation. So those are really nice in this market, because you can go in, you can clean them up, you can get them, right back on the market, and you can really turn over your capital really quickly. So given that it was a 7.5 or 8 out of 10, what do you think, what was the main motivating factor that made them want to just sell to an investor? Was it just the timeline, or was there anything else, do you think?
It sounded like a timeline, and they didn't really want to do anything. And they were motivated because they wanted to start a family. So I figured once I got the motivation, I knew that they wanted to definitely move to a bigger place, because the place is, it's a 3-bedroom, but technically it's like a 2.5. It's not even 1,000 square feet. So I knew that they were there for, I think it was around 7 or 8 years, and then they wanted to go to the next stage in their life and start a family. And the only way to do that was to sell, and they didn't want anything to do with it, because she was commuting to Boston every day, and then he worked out of the house, so he was more flexible. So he didn't care where he moved to. And,
but they still stayed in the same town, right?
They still stayed the same town, yeah, but closer to the highway.
Okay. And you said they're moving in with one of them is moving in with an in-law.
Yes.
Okay. And so did that play a factor to it as well? Was there some need there maybe to take care of the parents, or planning for potentially having kids? What was the kind of thinking as far as that goes?
To me, it sounded like the mother was gonna, or the mother-in-law was going to take care of the child coming. I don't know if she said she was actually pregnant or they were working on it too. So I knew that they wanted an extra bedroom. They wanted to start their family. So I knew that they were serious about selling. But they didn't want people. They were private people. They had a lot of stuff around them. They have cameras everywhere. So they just wanted something quick. They want in and out.
All right, so we're hitting on some other things here. So that definitely, so the cameras. So why do they have the cameras?
To me, it sounded like they were just private people. They didn't want anybody to walk through the house. Right.
So that's a common one, and that's definitely super important in terms of like what their motivation might be. So some people will sell us they will sell a house to us because they don't want anybody else seeing the inside of their house. For whatever reason, they're just super private.
Mm-hmm.
So that may have played a little bit more of a role than what you might have thought. Did they say that they were even considering listing the property, or was it just I'm selling to an investor and whoever is going to pay me the most is going to get it?
It sounded like more at first I thought they wanted top dollars and they didn't really care about the timeline. But then through more searching, and then I tried to listen more than to talk. Like I said, I met with the husband first, and then I talked to the wife on the phone. I know that by the time the wife was supposed to come home, I'm trying to think, it was a while ago. The wife was coming home and then ended up being late. And then they realized, I could tell that the commute was an issue. And they wanted to just basically, it's not like they just want to get out of it. They want to get cash out, come to find out towards the end, they use that money to cash out to buy a car.
Okay. All right. So some interesting stuff there. Do you know if we had any competition on that one?
It didn't sound like it. It sounded like we were the first ones in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helped.
Okay, makes sense. And then you got the contract signed on the second appointment?
On the second appointment, yeah.
Okay, and prior to the second appointment, did we already basically agree on a price, or did you go back out and then negotiate once you were face to face with them?
That one, I don't think we had a price ready yet, but I still went on the appointment just to make sure it was okay. And then I'm trying to think. We didn't have a price, but then when I was there, I opened up my laptop and then I saw the offer of $250.
Yep.
If I remember, and then I said roughly this is what the price is going to be. I try to go on the kitchen table to put my stuff up. The dog was barking, and I remember there was a lot of stuff going on. And by the time I was there for more than an hour, and it was good. It was definitely different because, like I said, I was thinking they were going to list it more than sell it, than sell it to an investor. But that's why I try not to prejudge that. I just leave it up to them, and then I let them see whatever they want to do.
So you've done, like we talked about, maybe 10 to 12 acquisitions with us.
Yeah.
What are some of the common themes that you've seen? I know every situation might be a little bit different, but what's the most typical reasons that you see that people sell a property to us?
Convenience. They don't want to replace the smoke detectors. They don't want to do anything. They're tired of being a landlord. They don't want to shovel snow. They just want to basically cash for keys. They just want to check, hand you over the keys, and that's it. Go on their merry way onto the next, whether it's they're getting married or starting a family or getting a divorce. They just want it.
In your opinion, what's easier, getting the investment deal or getting the listing?
Depending on the situation, I think getting the investment deal is a lot easier.
Why do you think that?
We already have a price. We go in there, and if the place isn't up to par, then it's a lot easier. But if the place is already nice, then I can always say it as, well, this is the offer that I present, and then I wait for feedback from them. If they don't jump down my throat saying, oh, how dare you do this or say this, I take a step back. I say, well, this is an investor offer. I wouldn't recommend it. We wear many hats here. We can offer this as well. So I walk in, I say, well, I look through the eyes of a buyer, like an end user, somebody who wants to live in the area, through the eyes of an investor, and through the eyes of like a realtor. So I just give them many options. Before, when I was with a big company, there was no choices. It's just one, boom. Based on comps, that's what it sells for because your neighbor sold for X. And that's what we think yours is sell for. So I think giving people choices and then helping them decide and saying that, we'll all decide together and tell them that the housing market is the same idea as the stock market. The price does change depending on the buyer pool and how many people that we can walk through the doors.
So you also got, was it 1 or 2 listings this week?
I got 2. One was a condo in Framingham, and the other one was a single family in Lexington.
Okay. And were both of those from our leads?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Corey, so Corey is a real estate agent, an investor, a builder. So he's got a lot of experience in basically all the stuff that we do. He does a lot of new construction stuff in higher end cities, actually, that we typically don't do a lot of work in. So the listing that you got in Lexington's an area that I've never bought a house in Lexington. It just never seems like my number would work because in a lot of cases, a developer is going to come in, they're going to knock the house down, and they're going to build something 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, whatever it ends up being. So when you went out to the property in Lexington, were you anticipating it to be kind of a knockdown type of deal, or what was the expectations going into that specific appointment?
I was thinking it was going to be a knockdown deal. So I went in there saying that I'm trying to think if we had our offer. We didn't have our offer ready on that one. So I went there and I gave him a range what an investor would buy it for.
Yep.
And I said,
which was what, roughly? Do you remember?
I said between 5.25 to 5.50 around there.
Okay.
I think our offer was like 490 or close to 500, if I remember. That neighborhood was close to Arlington, not close to center of town. So you wouldn't get so much more. Retail would be, I'd say, probably between 650 to 675. It might even push to 700, but it needed lots of work. It looked like it was a 70s kitchen, not much backyard. The house was pushed back all the way. If the neighborhood was close to center of town, a builder would give it a haircut, put a second floor on because it was a ranch, and make it into a center entrance colonial. But the numbers don't make sense if you work backwards. So I think the best bet for them, because they didn't, I'm sorry. They also had a timeline. They already purchased the property in Wayland, and they needed to move in January. So I told them, I said, well, we walk into about 15 to 20 homes every month. Out of that, I buy for Ocean City Development 3 to 5. And I said, I'm not sure. I came in as that. I don't know if I can help you with this, but I think this investor offer, because you're looking for top dollars and not listing it, this isn't the offer that's going to be the best for you. I think the best bet is to list it. And then they said, well, if I list it, can you give me a discount? Well, I said, well, what we end up doing is the Cameron Real Estate Group. It's not like the regular investment company. We market a lot, and a lot of times we might even have a buyer in the database. So if there's no other real estate agent involved, I'll turn around and give you a discount. And so I end up putting it on Zillow coming soon on Sunday night, and then I got a realtor that called me yesterday morning, and they wanted to bring somebody in. So I told them that the place, it needs a lot of updating. Like everything is like lime green, jade. It needs a good paint job and a cleaning, and they have stuff everywhere. So they said it's okay for me to bring people in sometime next week.
So if you were going to do that in Lexington, what would you have had to pay in order to make that deal work?
5.25.
Okay, so 5 to 5.25.
Yeah.
And why didn't they want to sell it for that amount?
They wanted to get 700.
Okay. Why?
They needed for their next home that they purchased in Wayland already, which is going to close, I think they said January 8th.
So they had that one under contract. What would have happened had they not gotten 700? What happens if they were only able to get 500? They'd have to back out of the deal in Wayland?
No, I told them that. I said, well, what happens if you don't get the 700? Well, what if we only get 650 or 600? Well, we can rent it out.
Okay.
I get that sometimes too. I said, okay, well, you're going to rent it out forever? Are you going to wait for the market? Because chances are a lot higher for going down than going up. I said the house next door sold for $591. I think it was two years ago when I did comps on that street. I mean, that street, like I said, if it was closer to the Lexington side, it would have been worth more. And for them not wanting to pay an agent for that, I said, well, you have to pay an agent because we're the cheerleaders for the property. Because if you think about it, if this property is in Lexington and it's worth X. If the same property was in Leominster, it was going to be worth differently. I mean, so the best way to get the best price is to pay realtors and put it on MLS. But then, like I said, they said for me to pre-market it first, because I did say that our company, the way we market, we do pre-sell a lot.
Mm-hmm. So what did you end up listing it for?
I ended up listing it for $669,885.
Okay. And what do you think is going to end up happening at that price level?
I think it's going to end up probably selling for close to $650.
And will they sell for $650 if they have to?
Yeah.
Okay. So you think that one's as close to a done deal as you can get for something that just got listed?
I think that's what's going to happen, because when I first talked to them, I gave them, I had two offers for them. One was our OCD offer, and then I got another offer from another builder, and their max was they said they'll go up to 610. And I told them that. They're like, oh, okay, so if you can get more at this price, then yeah, I don't mind putting it on MLS. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll do whatever you want, but we just have to be realistic, because we have to work together to set the market price. It's no one knows 100%.
So
what else until it closes.
What was that investor that was going to pay $610 going to do to it?
They were going to put a second floor on,
okay,
and sell it out as a colonial.
And in your opinion, that was too much to pay?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that somebody
Not in that neighborhood? Not in that neighborhood.
Was that somebody that you knew, or somebody? Yes. Okay.
Somebody that I knew.
And he was just willing to overpay on it.
He was willing to overpay to keep the guys busy in the wintertime. I find that if people need work, they'll end up paying a little bit more than if they already have too much work. Whether they get it or not, they don't care. It's pie in the sky. Because even at that price point, even if they paid $6,000 and then they build out the second floor for $350,000, that's almost $1 million. In that neighborhood, they might have gotten 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, by the time they pay realtor fees and they go backwards, they would have been looking at $40,000 to $50,000 profit. They don't want to risk $1 million in order to get $40,000, $50,000. The only person who would do that, I find, are more for rehabbers rather than builders.
So one important thing I want to hit on, because half the people that are on here are local to our office, and then the other half are in other parts of the country. For the people that are in other parts of the country that are looking to wholesale, what Corey said is really important. We've got people in this market that aren't busy enough, that they have to keep their contractors going throughout parts of the year. And they're willing to pay more and almost make nothing or next to nothing in a lot of cases. So we're in a market right now, as of November 2017, where wholesaling is the best it's ever going to get. There's very, very limited inventory. You've got people that are experienced, that have money, that want to do deals and are willing in a lot of cases to overpay. So, Corey, you mentioned again, your number would have been, say, $525, and he was going to pay $610. And my number was $480, let's just say. So effectively, this person was going to pay, and this person was an investor. They were going to pay over $100,000 more than what me and you were willing to pay just to keep some guys busy throughout the winter. So we always want to use, the formula of 70% of ARV minus repairs to come up with the offer. But that doesn't mean that that's what our competitors are using. Or our competitors might be using that number, but they may end up going up. So just keep that in mind, that if you get something at 70% of ARV minus repairs in a lot of markets, you can still make money on it. So so what was, the hard thing a lot of times on those ones that you go out there and make an investment offer is, what do you say to convert that into a listing? So what was the terminology that you used, or how did you set the stage from going from an offer that was $150,000 less than what they wanted to then listing their property?
Well, the way I do it, whenever I go into an appointment, I always say there's three prices to every property. It's just like the stock market. If a stock opens at $1.99 in the morning, it could close at $3, and all throughout the day, the price changes. It depends on the buyer pool. So I always say there's three prices to every home. The first price is what an investor pays, and that's usually about 70-75%, because they factor in carrying costs, doing over the kitchens and baths, and a profit for themselves. And the second price is what the market value is, at what the average Jane and Jack Doe would want to move in, and that's based on like homes, comparable homes in your area. They're going to pay the most, but that usually is with a realtor. It's usually on MLS, and you're going to pay realtor fees, but that's top dollar. And then you're going to have to, paint and do light housekeeping. People are going to walk through the doors. And the third price is what a seller thinks the home is worth, because they just replaced the rugs, and I always remind them, the only thing that adds value to a property is square footage, not because you changed the curtains or the rugs. And once I bring them back to reality, they realize that, and I tell them, you know what, we're all in the same goal. Oh, the way I said it was, they said originally, to backtrack, they said, well, can we get these guys to pay more? And they said to me,
they wanted me to pay more.
Yeah. Well, how can I get these guys to make? I said, well, these guys are accountants, so everything's about the number. Whether they buy your house, my house, the house next door, if the numbers make sense, they'll do it. Trust me, I want them to pay you $1 million because they're the ones who pay me. So I make it now. I shift and I say that I'm on their side. So I have to, because I'll get thrown out if I ever present an offer of $490 and these guys want $700. They're like, get the hell out of here! I don't want you to come back here. So I just have to do like an arm's length transaction and go out and then just make sure that now we're working together in order to get that. And then we're giving them choices. Like I said before, with the big franchise companies, I couldn't offer them that. I just said, this is the price X, boom, that's it. There's the listing, there's the contract, and see you later.
Is there anything on the face-to-face appointments, like what's the biggest tip or advice that you can give to somebody who's meeting with these people face-to-face?
I would tell them, like I said, the best bet is like the Framingham people. They kept trying to push me into sit in the living room, and living room is where people come, they're casual, and the dog will come start, licking my legs. I don't want that. I go to the kitchen table to make sure that that's where the family goes. So you want to be included in part of the family. So these little twerks that you need to do, or just to remind yourselves that, we're working together, the same goal. Naturally, I want you to get the most for your money. I tell them, hey, listen, even my wife wants you to get the most for the money, because we're all benefiting. So our goal is for you to get the most for your property, so we can all benefit together and we're working together as a team.
So how did you get to the kitchen table if they wanted you to be in the living room?
I said, you know what? I've been in a comfortable car chair. I rather just sit somewhere so I can plant my stuff. And then I find that it's a lot better like that, because family's the one who sits in the kitchen table. They eat together. In the living room, they're watching TV. Usually the TV's on loud. I find that a lot when the TV's on, and you don't want to talk louder than the TV, and you don't want to say, hey, kid, put the TV down. So you just keep your voice, and they can't hear. Then they'll go in the other room. They'll turn the TV down. Like, this guy's making sense. Let me do what they're saying.
Nice. All right. Well, any final words before we swap over? Again, thank you for coming on. And I told you these questions aren't going to be too hard. So you did well. I don't know what you thought I was going to hit you with, but pretty basic stuff, I think.
Yeah, Corey. There were two things there that I listened to that made sense that a lot of people should really pay attention to, and that was, number one, you didn't get the face-to-face signing on the first one, but it was the follow-up where you got the signing. So the follow-up is 90% of closing most transactions and deals. You really have to follow up. You have to make sure that you're pitching on the phone afterwards. It's not all about the pitch on the face-to-face, even though that's where you want to sign it, but doing the right follow-up. You didn't get too busy. A lot of people will miss calls here and there, but being on top of it and rescheduling that appointment and getting out there to see the other decision maker was kudos to you, number one. And number two, you have a segue in place in your pitch to go from acquisition to listing. And that right there needs to be seamless and smooth. And so it sounds like you have a decent one in place. So that's really great. A lot of people out there don't understand how to switch with finesse from an acquisition to a listing. And so those are the two things that I took away from that, and were probably the keys to your success throughout the listings and the acquisitions there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Anthony. I also find that, like I said, because if you give the offer first, then they associate you with that offer, and it's really hard to come back from that. You know what I mean? Like, so what I end up telling them is this. I say, well, this is the, because I know their price, what they want. I say, hey, this is the offer. You know, don't throw me out the window. I wouldn't recommend it, but I just want to present that to you, that this is what, they're like, well, I thought it was going to be a fair market value. I said, well, this is a fair investor offer because they factor in all the things that they need to do. And this is the most seamless that you can do. You can close in 30 days, 45 days, whenever you want to close. So that's worth something. That brings value.
Yeah.
Corey, what percentage of the deals, both investment and listing agreements, do you get signed on the first versus the second meeting?
I'd say probably about 40% of the time, I get it signed the first time. Like out of those last 3 appointments, the last one that was in Framingham, I went to the wrong house. I went to a road rather than a street. It was a condo.
Did you get that one?
Yeah. So I signed right then and there. That was the first time. But I remember when I was with Century 21, everything was a two-step deal. I'm thinking 2-step. Why is everything? So 100% of the time, if you don't do a 2-step, you're gonna do 2-step. You don't get it. So I'd say 40% of the time, you just present it, you put it there, and they'll sign. They'll sign, and you got to give them a pen. If you don't hand them a pen, they won't take it. You can't just push that down and then have them go fish through it.
Yeah, I never understood the concept of making it always a 2-step, because if you can get it on the first one, why would you wait? Yeah. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people that just won't sign on the first one, or they're not ready, or you have to get back to them with information. But all right, well, thank you for jumping on. We're going to continue on, but I'm going to bring you off here if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Bye-bye.
All right, how do we do this week? Anyone else? Any of you 3 get anything closed?
I got an acquisition last week and a listing.
Which one was the acquisition?
The Bill Ricca.
Oh, yeah, that was last week?
Early last week, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Barbara?
I have
you listed Lynn, right?
What's that?
You got a listing in Lynn, right?
I have a listing in Lynn, I have a listing in Malden, and I have a listing in Peabody, although I don't have it signed. I spoke to him this morning. It turned out it was not a 2-step deal. There have been multiple steps.
How many steps are we talking?
Well, I met him at the house. Then I talked to him a couple of times on the phone. Then I met him at the house, and he owns it with his brother. And his brother was in Maine hunting, and then he was going, I think, north of New Hampshire, and like the brother can't get the cell phone, so there were a couple of conversations. And then I scheduled and met with him yesterday, and I thought we were signing. Mm-hmm. Because he said, yeah, you know, he told his brother all about it, and it was good. And I had already sent him the CMA, and that's why it took like a week for him to get it to his brother, who has no email and is in God knows where. And so I thought we were signing yesterday, and then I went over the prices with him again, and then he said that he had to talk to his brother. And I was like, oh, God. Because he spent like 2 weeks talking to his brother in my mind.
Yep.
You know, so he said he had to talk to his brother again. But I didn't. He's a really nice person. He's pretty relaxed. So it wasn't a situation where I wanted to push it. And I hate to say it because, you know, until it's signed, it's nothing. But I really felt secure when he had initially said to me, I think at the first face-to-face meeting, he was like, oh, wow, you know, I was telling him about the marketing and how we get people interested and how we build tension and demand and how many people are going to be at the open house and kind of what it looks like when they come in and how one person wants it and then the other person wants it more because, you know, everybody's in there one time and a lot of that. And he was really interested and said, you know, I never really understood everything that was involved until you explained this to me. And then he got into it all with his brother. And so they were really happy with the whole marketing plan.
Yep.
So I feel very comfortable on there. You know, our price was 3-something, 350, 320 maybe. And The house has a full-on in-law, like a completely separate apartment, and it's really big. Like the average sale in the neighborhood is probably 430, but their place is like 3,000 square feet or something crazy. So,
Yep.
Anyway, I spoke to him again this morning, so I met with him yesterday. I had everything all set in the dot loop ready. I think I'm going to sign him, and he said he had to talk to the brother. So I said, great. I never called him last night. I waited. I called him first thing this morning. And he said, yeah, he talked to his brother. The brother's excited. They're all set to go. And then I said, great, I'll ship that over to you because I have it all in dot loop. And he does admin for his job online, so I know he'll be comfortable with that.
Yep.
And then he told me, and he has to run it by his lawyer. And I knew he was going to do that, but I thought he was talking about the purchase and sale. I didn't know he was going to want to float all this by the attorney. So anyway, I sent it to him at 9 o'clock this morning, and I offered to copy it, email copy it to his attorney. And he said, well, no, because I got to bring him a check first because I still owe him for, it's a friend of the family and he didn't pay him for some other thing he did. And which was kind of a joke, but he was laughing about it. I was like, all right. So I guess I'll get that back hopefully today, but it's a nice house in South Peabody. It's dated.
Yep.
The problem I find with in another market that would be an acquisition because it's carpeted and the kitchen is 70s, 80s. But the demand is so high for property that they know they can get a better price, and he lives around the corner, and they know, that guy sold for this and this guy sold for that, and they know everybody in the neighborhood and what's going on, so they weren't going to settle for the shorter price.
What do you think it's going to list for?
$455 we agreed to put it on for.
And what do you think it will sell for?
I think it will sell probably right about there, give or take $5,000. Because it not only has the in-law, it has an in-law on the same level, and then in the basement there's another bath and a couple of finished rooms, and you could essentially have and another kitchen that hasn't been used in a long time. So it's almost like there are 3 different units in this house.
So what do you think they would have taken? Lowest offer they would have considered?
$425.
Okay, so it definitely was a retail.
Yeah.
You mentioned, multiple people, a seller, his brother. How often do you have multiple sellers, and typically how do you handle that?
I have multiple sellers more than half the time, I would say. There's either the spouse who isn't there when you come the first time, or very often, because, I'm looking at estate properties, there's either one sibling or several siblings, and some of their spouses, depending how much influence they have or not. So a lot. Usually I'm talking to one person and they have to check in. Often I never even see the other person who's involved, which, it's uncomfortable because I have no access to the brother. I always say, listen, why don't we can all get together. Why don't I come back and the 3 of us will sit, or the 4 of us will sit, or however many people. But often they don't even live in the state. And this guy, I don't know if he lives in Maine, but he's up there till after Thanksgiving hunting. So, and I knew that 2 weeks ago, that this guy is totally out of the loop. Yep. Phone wise and everything else.
Anthony, what do you usually do, Anthony, if you've got multiple people like that?
Well, the number one thing you have to do is you have to find out who the decision maker is.
Right.
Who's the guy turning the wheel? Whether it's, that's just through building rapport, qualifying, and just asking your questions and just getting to the bottom of the motivation. You're going to discover who's really pulling the strings for the transaction. And so,
you're saying it's always one of the two.
It's always one. There's never equal power shared in transactions. There's always somebody that's driving the force that behind it, in my experience anyways. And so when you find that one person, you have to get that one person. You got to get behind him and actually get him into, like Barbara was doing. She was trying to get to the brother, but I'm not sure if that other brother, it sounds like the person she was talking to was actually the decision maker.
Right.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah. So I wouldn't even have reached out to the other one, even though it's nice to just say if he was local, we could all get together and talk. But once you have the decision maker in your grasp, you just have to press on them and get them to do the moving around and move the moving parts around. because, you know, that decision maker is the one that's going to move the pieces around the board for you.
Mm. And Barbara, have you anything else? Any advice on that in terms of just multiple decision makers?
Well, Anthony's right that you have to know who's legally in charge.
Yeah.
Right. Like this guy, his name is on the deed, but his brother, like sometimes you get one person that owns it and they're really in charge, or they're the executor, and other times I find, like, so this guy, his name's Leo, he's the decision maker, but he said, like, I could just tell that he and his brother, this is a family where there is no animosity, which isn't the usual thing. Like, these guys are on the same page. His brother's like, you handle it, whatever you think is fine. And the one I'm talking to won't commit until he talks to the brother. Like, there's a lot of respect between the two of them going on. That more often there's animosity somewhere down the line with a bunch of siblings, but that wasn't the case here. And that's some of it. I run into that a lot. Or sometimes you're dealing with the person who thinks they're in charge, but really they don't hold the legal power. Those 4 women in Salem were a great example. You know, one was the one that was the executor was not the one that was doing all the talking and pulling the strings. Legally,
that was the one that we ended up buying. You're talking about
Simmons Street, yeah.
Yep.
The oldest sister had the legal power, but the second sister, I think she was the second sister, really was the one controlling everything. And then there was another sister who, you know, thought it was worth $1 million. And then there was a 4th one that was just a wild card. So you have a lot of different characters to get on board.
One thing you want to keep in mind when you have multiple decision makers is that, like, if I go out and I pitch one person, I do my entire 45-minute sit down with them, and then you have to hope that that decision maker can play telephone and relay all of the information to the other decision makers in the party. And that's really hard for someone to do on your behalf, because what's vital is that the decision maker is actually able to relay, almost like play parrot, to your, you know, main points of why, you know, they should do business with you. So a follow-up email, or if you just jotted down something on like a T-chart, I'm not sure if everyone knows what a T-chart is, but if you jot something down on a T-chart and just leave it with them, you know, all the main points that you know, are benefits to working with us, and you leave that and you tell them, hey, when you talk to the other people, here's just some notes to go by, and you can actually write down and have them repeat back all the main stuff that's going to try to sell them on why working with you. Just letting them trying to relay the entire conversation is putting a lot in their hands. And to lower the risk, you want to try to guide what they say to the other people. And so if you jot things down or send an email, to have them go off that to relay the information, it's best.
I like that a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense, because I think it's a lot of information for the average person to even comprehend. And then you're assuming that they're going to remember all of the main points, or that they're going to even hit on the ones that are important. Eric, you still alive over there?
I am. I'm here listening in.
What happened to you this week? Anything good?
Nothing too exciting. I had the appointment out in South Hadley that I thought was going to go pretty well. But the owner has not gone back to me after about 3 or 4 follow-ups.
So what happened on the original appointment?
On the original appointment, she has a small condo in South Hadley, a really nice community, really well kept, really well maintained. It was all freestanding condos. She's lived there for about a little over 10 years and is retired. She just wants to sell and move down to Florida. The biggest thing that I had is I couldn't pull a timeline out of her. I could tell that she wanted to sell, but I actually tried to revisit the timeline a couple times through the appointment, and she really wouldn't unveil when she was looking to move. It wasn't after the holidays or anything like that. She didn't seem to have any family in the area that she was committed to. But anyways, I went to the house was in good shape. When we got there, she sat me right down at the table. So we just started talking about the community, you know, the details of the property. It was in, you know, it wasn't incredibly modern, but it was very well kept. You know, she updated the windows and the sliding doors and the The kitchen was in decent shape. It wasn't old. It was updated. It was nothing special.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the feeling that it wasn't going to be an investor offer. So I told her kind of what we talk about in the Thursday classes, that we draw from two pools of buyers. The investor offer, I don't think is going to be a good fit here. It's a lot lower than what I think the value of this house is worth. And she was nice. She didn't even ask me for the offer. She was actually had her eyes pretty much set on listing the property anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, we kind of got up and then walked around the house. She had, it was really strange. She has a tenant in the basement with like a wet sink and a bathroom, but like no real kitchen. There was like a toaster oven down there. So she kind of had it set up like a two-family, even though it really isn't allowed to be, in my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she showed me around the house, told me all the details on the heating, the hot water, all that stuff. And then when we got back to the kitchen to sit down, I started going into the marketing plan that we have and the pre-marketing. And, just as how much money we spend to get in front of sellers, we do the same to get in front of buyers. And I really thought that I gave a really good presentation. I mean, I would say for being maybe 3 weeks strong on going to multiple appointments, I would give myself probably C+, B- on my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And she really liked everything that we said. She loved the idea of marketing. She didn't think that all the extra marketing would be needed. Because her understanding of the market, obviously she's lived there for 10 years. The community doesn't sell a lot of homes. Usually they sell very quickly. She was happy with the price range I gave her. I said,
well, hold on. Let me just stop you right there. So she doesn't
Sure.
she doesn't think she needs the marketing, right?
Well, no. She didn't. Not that she doesn't need it, but she was kind of selling me on the community as much as I was selling her on how we market the property and everything like that.
So what she's saying is that the property is going to sell itself.
Right.
Right. So let me just, do the math for you really quickly, right? So her premonition, her kind of theory is like you put a sign out in front of the house, and because the area is in such high demand, which by the way, South Hadley, man, no way on that town. But anyways, that's besides the point. This goes for any city. So
Right.
she puts a sign out in front of the yard, doesn't put it on MLS, doesn't pay money for marketing, right? Is she going to get more or less people in the door than us?
She's going to get far less people, I think.
Okay. She's going to get less, 100%. Now, we don't know if it's going to be, 3 less people, 30 less people, 50 less people. But on any item, regardless if it's real estate or an iPad or a car, if you have 30 people that are shopping for that car or one person that's shopping for that car, what is going to yield the higher price?
The 30 people.
30 people every time, right? So I would have stopped her there because I think where she was going with that was almost like, I don't need a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you need to hit on that. And I think you need to explain that to the person so that they get what the value is, right? So if we can get more eyes on the property, not only can we get fair market value, but we might actually be able to get more than fair market value. Because if we've got 2 people that want to pay fair market value, guess what? One of them is going to have to come above fair market value in order to get the property. So continue on with where you were at. Where you were at was she told you how great of a community it is, and you tell her how great the marketing plan is.
So basically, she was okay with the price range that I gave her. I think I said it'll be between, 175 to 185.
Mm-hmm.
But same thing that you just kind of touched on, that the more people we can get in the door and the more interest in the property, hopefully we can get it to sell closer to the 200 mark, which the only 2 comps in the community had more square footage, but they sold right about 199.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very happy with everything, to my understanding. She said, okay, the only thing left is, send me all the paperwork. Go write it all up and send it over to me. So I said, okay, thanked her for my time. Came back to the office, put it all together and sent it over. And I just haven't heard back from her since. So I don't know if that was her way of getting me out of the door or.
Wait, what did she say back to you when you went for the close?
She said, she said the only thing left is to put all the paperwork together and send it over to me. She says I like to read through the details and get an understanding of everything. So I actually had a lot of the documents on me, and I wanted to point out a couple things to her, like the non-MLS for when we pre-list. And I started to pull those documents out to show her, and she's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it, honey. Just email it to me."
Anthony, what would you have done at that point?
I would have put them on the table.
I started to do that. I actually took 2 of them out, left them on the table for her, and she like gave them back to me. So
yeah, no, I mean, there's 2 concerning things there, and then the end is the third. So the one, like he said, he doesn't need the marketing. Number 2, she didn't want to reveal her timeline to you, which means that the discovery mode of exploring the motivation and trying to find out what's really behind her wanting to sell and getting into there. Like it seemed like you did a good job, but we just needed to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, you got like 90% through most of the stuff.
Yeah, you were close. You were real close there. But the fact that she didn't want to, she didn't think the marketing. She thought the marketing was too much. Number 1, you got to hit that out of the ballpark right away. Shoot that down. That's the number 1. Number 2, if you couldn't get a timeline out of her, I feel like that's one of the easier things to get. So if you can't get a timeline out of her or something like that, you got to build a little more rapport, get some more dialogue going. Sit down, have some conversations, make the appointment go a little longer. Got to keep digging. And then number 3, when she says all we got to do is put together the paperwork. I would have said the same thing. Well, I have it right here. I would have brought it right out, no hesitation, put it right on the table in front of her. And then if she had still said, well, it's okay, just email it to me, I would have said, well, here you go. This is exactly what it is. I can also email you a copy, but I just wanted to go through.
I think that's the key thing, right? So she's basically saying, email it to me and I'll review it by myself.
Yeah.
So you got to have a rebuttal for that, which is that you reviewing it by yourself, you have a question. How do you get it answered? I'm here. We've got the contracts. You don't even have to say like we're going to sign anything. Yeah, but let's talk about what's in there, because if we don't talk about what's in here now, it's going to go to you. It's going to be inefficient, and you're going to have a question while you're reading through it, and I'm not going to be there.
Exactly. You say I'll email you a copy as well, but I just like to go through it with all my clients in these meetings, and so I would have broke it out and just went right through it with her and just line by line, and then eventually, if you can make her feel a little more comfortable with the whole paperwork, and she feels a little more comfortable, sometimes sometimes you have to reclose. You can't, sometimes if you go for a close and you don't get it on the first try, you have to keep reclosing and reclosing. It's just a process. And when you have to reclose more than 2 to 3 times in a meeting, typically there's something there in your sales process that didn't take place. And for you, I think it was the uncovering of the timeline, not digging a little deeper. I think that small little piece of the sales process was missing, and that's why the close was difficult. But it wasn't impossible. I just think a good rebuttal there with I'll email you a copy, but let's just go through it right now would have probably been, a good reclose. Not saying it would have worked, but these are just all the things that you pull out on appointments, to up your conversion ratio.
And do you know for certain that she's selling?
I'm pretty confident that she is. She was saying that she was already, I forget exactly the town that she was looking for in Florida, but she had some friends down there and she wanted to move down to live with the friend or nearby the friends in the same community. So she didn't have a place picked out, but she was pretty set on it. So that's why I probably revisited the timeline, I think 3 different times throughout the appointment. And I don't know. She just didn't let it. She just wouldn't let it out. So I guess I just need to. Mm-hmm.
Did she give you any other objections? Did she say anything about just anything that?
She gave me an objection about being located in Wakefield with the house being out near Springfield.
That's where I was going with that, because I had a very strong feeling that objection probably came out at some point.
Mm-hmm. And so what I did there is I just told her, I said, that's a valid point that, we are a company that, does a lot of our business across the state, but you have to think that, the majority of buyers start their property search online. And that's where we're going to do the majority of our marketing is online. So we're going to be drawing buyers, even though our office is located in Wakefield, we're generating the leads and the activity on your property from the internet anyways. So I mean, we don't have to have an office in the square to sell your property. It's basically kind of, that wasn't exactly how I said it, but more or less that's what I
would have hit on with that would be just like we generating an appointment with you, we're going to generate an appointment with the buyer. So I always would flip the coin on the marketing piece because I think it's so important. We spent money to get you. We're going to spend money to get buyers. Just like I got an appointment in South Hadley to meet with you, I'm going to get a buyer in South Hadley to see your property. And so nobody else does that. And I would hit on the fact of how much money that we're spending on marketing every single year, and just definitely hit on that.
That always works well, I find.
Yeah.
Well, nobody else does it. So that's the thing. You can confidently say, yeah, you can get somebody locally in the square. And that goes back to like the misconceptions on how a property gets sold and how you get the most amount of money for your house. So what I'm hearing from her is a lack of understanding about how to get the most money for her house. She thinks the property is going to sell itself. She thinks you put a sign out in the yard and it's going to sell for X, right? She thinks if the property's worth 180, by putting a sign out in the yard, she's going to get exactly 180. But that's not true. We have to get as many buyers. If we don't get enough buyers in the house, even though the house might be worth 180, we might only get 165. And vice versa. If we get an overflow of buyers into the house, maybe it's worth 180, but we get 195. So helping them to understand how you create the supply and demand and how we can do that anywhere. I mean, we generate leads in other states, right? So there's nowhere that I can't generate a lead, right? So there's nowhere in the United States that we can't generate leads, both buyers and sellers, very easily. Anthony, what would you say about I'm not local? Because I'm sure you've gotten that one too.
Yeah, when people just tell you that you're not local, you have to go back to the way technology is used today. Nobody's going down to the local office to see what's for sale. Anytime somebody's going to look for a house, they're going to go, the first place they go is online. And when they go online, that's what it does. It shrinks the world. So any house for sale in your market is all going to be in one platform today. And so it's all going to be in one area. Just type in some zip codes and you're going to find it there. And so just the way you would look for a home online is the same way all the buyers are going to look for a home online. And all the buyers are going to go right online, and that's where we're spending our money, and that's where we're putting it. And so, you just use our marketing and the technology piece in order to just show them. It's really an education point because people just don't realize maybe the last time they sold their home was 25 years ago when the internet wasn't used. And so nowadays, when you tell them and you explain the marketing and the technology and how it works and it makes sense to them, now that's when you can rebuttal it. But you have to explain it in a way that makes sense to them and so that they understand. And so sometimes, using trial closings when you're rebuttaling this particular one would work for you. Ask them if they understand. How does this sound? Just little trial closes in that rebuttal help that one specifically.
Definitely. All right, guys, we're at the end of the hour. Anyone have any parting words? Anything good to say before we sign out?
I just want to thank you guys for having me on every week because, this feedback is always very helpful to, as a newer agent, getting everything to sound correctly. Hearing you guys say it to me puts it in a lot cleaner line. So appreciate that. Yeah, we got a lot more coming, and we're going to be announcing some really cool stuff on Thursday on the 1 p.m. seller conversion session. So bottom line, way more training. A lot more good stuff coming. So everyone who's on, stay posted. If you're local and you can get to the Thursday meeting, definitely do so because we're going to be taking all the stuff up another notch. So, all right, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you.
All right, bye.